How is it going, everybody?
Hello, everyone. This is the first attempt for me to try something a little bit different. It's going to be the first installation of DB After Dark. So about Thursday at 12:02 in the morning already on the East Coast. So we're going to go into a little bit more about what Monday's show was, where me and L. Deeds talked a bit about opening the primary, trying to get some pressure going in that regard, and also talk about a few other things going on in regards to this crazy election cycle. Like Nick was elaborating on earlier on the Anti-Media show right before, we have a ridiculous thing going on right now in both parties, actually. Both parties can probably split. It wouldn't be crazy to see something like that happen, where conservative billionaires decide to back somebody else besides Trump. And, on the DNC side, there's a lot of people that are feeling very threatened. One of them is Senator Barbara Boxer in California. All right, so let's get our guest, Jason Yanez, on. He's going to be our first guest. I'm going to add him into the call. Okay, hi, Jason. Jason Yanez, this is DB from DB After Dark. We had actually kind of vicariously spoken through Elizabeth L. Deeds, who had been kind of talking to you about opentheprimary.com. And I know you had created a video about a week ago that we had pitched through a couple of our own websites. And I was wondering if you had gotten any response to any of those, and also if she had talked to you about her endeavors today heading out to California to actually go to some rallies. She should be calling in, I hope.
Yeah, she did let me know. In fact, she spoke to me last night at length, trying to see if there was anybody I knew in California that I could get her in contact with to help with the endeavors out there. And I'm still doing that right now, actually.
And what's the latest that you've heard? I've heard that some of the rallies have been getting some pretty good traction with a petition she'd been wanting to circulate and getting hand signatures. That way they could be presented to Governor Brown, or at the very least Secretary of State Padilla, as referenced in the video for opentheprimary.org.
Yeah, I understand there was a Palo Alto rally today that looks like it was pretty big. I haven't actually heard back from anybody yet about it, and I don't know if any of the petitions made it to the people that were at that one. Sacramento, I believe, is tomorrow, and she and Kate are supposed to be there, and I've reached out to several other people that hopefully will be able to make it there. I know one person for sure called in, and another person shared her number so that the two of them could connect. I don't know if that's happened yet.
I think we're being joined by L. Deeds right now. L, is that you?
Hey, how are you?
We're doing great. Are you out in California?
I am at the rally at Davis right now. Bernie is shouting at the college students to take action and stand up.
That's amazing. And how's everything been going?
This has been an interesting crowd. We've been to 2 rallies today. And I have to say, this one has been a disappointing one. Now, why that is, I do not know.
How has the response been to the idea of getting these primaries to be done completely in an open fashion?
Well, at our first rally today, which was a smaller event, I think it was at a middle school, good response, good engagement, and a lot of just positivity.
And Jason, have you been finding that people are pretty open to the idea of trying to get some kind of some of these things? Oops, what are we? Well, that's crazy to hear that it was so much of a presence there. I totally understand.
It's also notable to just add that there are, I think, 8 or 9
major news station vans here, and they are at these events. If there's any confusion on that point, I'm here to dismiss it. They're watching. They're just not reporting. And I suppose that's because they're hoping somebody's going to throw a chair or something ugly will occur. And I'm happy to say nothing ugly has occurred. What's been dismaying about this college crowd, however, is how I'm trying to find a way to put it other than disengaged and uninformed, because we're talking about the future, but most every person I spoke to here, well, easily two-thirds, didn't understand the open versus closed primary detail, didn't understand the importance or need to instruct their representatives by placing their very peaceful protesting signature on this document. And the amount of "I'm good" I heard in response to, our pitch, which is, do you want more democracy? Do you think it's ridiculous, wrong, blatantly needs to be called out, what's happening in this election, and specifically in California before it happens? The glazed looks in their eyes, the "I'm goods," the focus on their phones. I don't want to sound like somebody saying, "Get off my lawn, you kids," but it's our team out here today has been regrouping about this issue throughout the hours.
What appears to be
it's worrying.
What's the consensus going forward that's going to be more effectual? Are we looking towards regrouping towards something at the DNC? And Jason, I know you're in Nevada. Is there anything going on now after the absolute circus that convention was to get traction going forward to put pressure on either the DNC there or just kind of separating it up somehow?
Well, I can say that it feels, and I've heard this from a few people now, as much as we wanted to fight back, and basically my hope was to try and get the DNC to reconvene the convention to finish the business that was left on the table, because there were motions that were left on the table at the point that Roberta Lane adjourned. And it would seem that any follow-up is not going to happen. At the very least, it's not going to reconvene, that's for sure. I understand that there are some people that have lawyers involved and the talk of lawsuits about what happened, but nothing to actually really go in there and try and reverse what happened. It feels like kind of a lost cause at this point, and everyone's focusing on going to national now and trying to make sure it doesn't happen there.
Interesting. I mean, it's just come down to a time frame thing. I mean, Bernie's been building and building and building. What does Bernie have to end up at to make this contested? Is it going to happen? Is the feeling on the ground there, Al, that it's going to be there as far as votes? And, Jason, knowing your background and looking into some of the videos you've made and the research, do you even think that anything like that's going to be allowed, or is that going to be something circumvented?
Well, I'm sure that after what happened here in Nevada and all the press that the whole, what they're calling Beargate and the reports of violent behavior and everything like that that have been going on, there's going to be a more significant security presence. I understand that they're talking about changing the rules to basically not allow any auditory outbursts of any kind. I don't know if they're moving forward with that at this point. I've just been hearing whispers and seen a few articles hinting at that possibility. One thing that I'm really pushing for is I'm trying to get in touch with as many of the delegates as possible that are going to be able to make it. And I want to teach them everything that I've been teaching myself over the last few weeks about Robert's Rules of Order and parliamentary process, so that they understand the language of the way everyone's going to be talking at the conference, the way the business will be handled, so that instead of being ignored when we have the need for an emotional outburst, we can calm down, we can regroup, and we can send somebody up to the front to make sure that our emotions are being heard, and that when they try to break the rules, that we can call them out on it and force it to be addressed, and that nothing's going to be left on the table, that all the business will be handled, and as much as possible that we can make sure that everybody is treated fairly and that all our voices are heard as needed.
Absolutely.
It's so important, Jason, and I want to commend you for the will to empower through information. It's obvious that is what is stopping us from engaging fully with this process. They wield these rules. And I'm sorry, I'm watching the crowd leave, and it's a kind of heartbreaking sight. This does not look like a rally. It may sound loud.
Yeah.
People have their heads down.
I want to touch on what you were saying earlier about all the I'm goods and the staring at the cell phones and not really paying attention to what's going on. It does really seem that there are an absurd amount of people that don't understand the process, just the basic process of how their own state votes, whether it be a caucus or an open or a closed primary. I will admit that when I started this process at the initial precinct caucus level, I wasn't really aware of what we were doing. I thought I was going in, I was going to, place my votes and be on my merry way, and they started asking for delegates for state. So, and I wrote a whole story about this elsewhere on Facebook, that basically I agreed to volunteer as a delegate for state, and I was selected, and I went, and again, I just felt that I was there to be a body in a chair and place my vote and listen to how things happened, and then go about my merry way. And then there were elections for, that was for county, and then there were elections for state, and I was chosen as an alternate. And once again, still, I hadn't done the research because things seemed to be going well, and I went in, and I thought I was just a body filling a seat, casting a vote, and listening to what was going on, not entirely understanding. But I got more involved because somebody asked if we could live stream for them because they couldn't make it and they wanted to see what was happening. And for that one person, I started the live stream, and as more people came in, they asked what was going on, so I recapped, and I started doing research while I was running Periscope on my tablet and researching on my phone and learning more and more. And since then, I've been learning volumes of information. And as I talk to more people about what they know and what they think about what's going on, it's absurd that the number of people out there that are, even the people that are involved in the process, not even counting the people that aren't even coming out to vote, they don't know what's happening. They don't know what they're doing or why they're doing it or what effect it has. And I realized, having gone through the school system in California, that's where I was raised, nothing about this was taught. It was never brought up. And I think it's a huge failure of the system that we don't even know how we elect our own officials or how they represent us, so that when it comes time for us to make a difference, we're dumbfounded. We're sheep because we don't know how to be anything else. And it's sad, and I know you're seeing it firsthand, and it's got to be heartbreaking.
I wanted to come on this podcast with I didn't want to bring heartbreak, but I have to admit that is my feeling. Even say to these students, the vast majority of them are, we don't want another New York. We want to prevent another Nevada. And to still fail to see the connection in their eyes or the interest in raising their voice in such a neutral and passive way, honestly. It's your signature. It's not a contract of marriage. It's just your name asking the governor and the state secretary to defend voting rights. You're not actually taking a risk. The risk is in failing to raise your voice. And to have that schism while we're being exhorted from the stage to stand up and fight and unite, and how does change occur? And if politicians do not listen to their constituents, they will become unemployed. These are virtual quotes in the background of the conversations, the dozens, if not 100 or more futile conversations I had this afternoon. And it did break my heart.
Going back to what you said, Jason, about learning so many things, what's the number one thing you've learned through this process? Because I know going through our own caucus process here up in Minnesota, and where, you know, your voice is immensely powerful at a community level, where you can sway a county with one vote. What's the number one thing you've learned going through this process in Nevada through the delegate process?
Interestingly enough, it's part of the whole Robert's Rules of Order, the parliamentary procedure. The thing that I realized, the most powerful thing that I've learned through all of this is that in these sessions, in these conventions, it is the body, the group of people, the majority of that 50% plus one, that has the actual control, and no one seems to realize it. That voting body is the only body that can actually make anything happen at these conventions. And it's just a step shy of almost basically laying down the law, and so many people sit there and have no idea that they hold this power in their hands, and they let themselves be bulldozed by the people that seem to be in charge, the committee and the chair people, who make it seem like they're running the convention when all they're doing is guiding it. And it comes down to the body itself making the decisions and having the power to prevent anything from going through that they don't feel is right. And I can't stress it enough, for all the delegates, all the people that go to these events and sessions, if they just know that one simple thing and some basic rules of how all of this works, they could change everything.
Absolutely. I mean, one thing I've noticed through this whole, especially with Bernie Sanders, and not just him, it's with Jill Stein, and it's with Johnson, and it's with anybody that's not establishment party, which is DNC and the GOP, essentially. There's a youth movement going on. That's what we're starting to see. I mean, you're a pretty young guy. I'm a pretty young guy. I mean, we're seeing a lot of 20-year-olds now that are delegates. There's people in their late 20s running for seats. I mean, this is starting a new movement. On the ground over there, I mean, you're seeing a lot of students that are apathetic, but is it also another movement there? Because, you know, Davis is kind of conservative, but it is close to the Bay Area and Berkeley.
Yes, it is. And I suppose your comment that this is a conservative area, I have to take that at face value. I only ever drove through Davis before. So if the question is, do I see some other, I saw some high school kids out here advocating for a proposition or two. They were willing to talk. They had some spark in their eye. You know, I didn't meet everybody in this crowd of perhaps 5,000 or fewer. It didn't seem like a big event to me. But, you know, I met a sample. I chose across demographics as far as they were available. It was mostly college age. It was mostly white. I didn't see a lot of engaging going on even between strangers. I didn't see a lot of anything going on except, forgive me, playing with the phone, buying some swag, not wanting to try to affect change. I don't believe this is the last event we're attending this week, so hopefully I'll have a different perspective on a different location tomorrow. We have to regroup after this event. We're all a little shaken.
And who have you been there working with, and what's next on the itinerary? And lastly, what other activist groups, if any, were there?
As I said, I engaged with a couple of high school students who are advocating for Prop A. I believe that was Prop A. I didn't keep their materials so they could give it to someone who could actually vote on it. They were seeking something about student housing, as I recall. So they were looking into their own future. That was exciting and cool. They wanted to sign our petition. They wanted to talk about what has happened to the right to vote in California. They understood the connection being made with New York, but again, they were 17, 16 years old. So I don't know. Do we skip a generation?
Could have happened. I don't know. That would be weird. Maybe the advent of the internet got it one section. You know, Jason, any local issues in your community, particularly you're going to be bringing to the table at the convention that you want to voice, or essentially what will be your role when you go? Or are you going at all?
I do have a GoFundMe right now to try and get there. I'm about $500 into my, I think I'm up to a $5,000 goal, but that includes getting some extra gear and everything because I did not get selected as a state delegate. Unfortunately, I signed the form basically pulling myself out of that race because I did not believe there would be any way that I could make it. And after the convention, having done the broadcasting with everyone that was watching, so many people showed their support and said that if I put it out there, they would do what they could to get me there. So unfortunately, it's too late for me to be a delegate, but I do have support from Adrienne Ashley up in Reno, who runs Crowded TV, and she's agreed to get myself and one other supporter in on a media ticket so that we can go and broadcast on the floor and interview people and make sure that we're showing live video of everything that's going on. It's just a matter of being able to raise the funds to fly out there and have a place to live while we're doing this for a week. Not being a delegate means that I won't be able to bring anything up. I won't be able to have any emotions, but I will be bringing all the information that I have gathered, all the resources I've put together. I'll have extra copies of bylaws and cheat sheets for Robert's rules, and I will be doing everything I can to connect with people in advance, teach them what I know, and advise them while I'm there as much as I can. I've also been working with with a parliamentarian who has agreed to answer any questions that I might have, both while I'm there and beforehand in preparation. So I'm just going to do what I can to broadcast everything as I did at the convention here in Nevada and make it available to the entire world to see. And I'm going to be asking people to copy my feeds and share them and mirror them everywhere, so nothing can be taken down, nothing can be edited out of context if at all possible. And I'll be trying to keep people updated on what's going on and advising people while I'm there.
And what would be the best way people could watch that broadcast, or will you not know until basically you're there?
I won't know for a little while. I originally used Periscope, which was great to be able to see everybody's reactions and chats as I was broadcasting, but the chats actually fade away after like 5 seconds, and it doesn't give you a lot of time to keep up with what everyone's saying. I'm considering using YouTube Live, but I need to test it out first, and I need to ensure that I can make it as far as getting the ticket and somewhere to stay and a way to get to and from the convention. So once I have all that locked in place, I'll be doing some testing with the equipment that I have, find the best way to do it, and then I'll be announcing that on my Facebook and Twitter pages or Twitter feed.
Outstanding. I know me and Elle plan on going to the convention areas ourselves, probably documenting the various events going on. Do you have anything planned for that, Jason? And Elle, do you know of anything yourself that you want to become involved with while we're there?
Jason, after you.
I'm as far as what's going on, I understand that there's at least one large rally that's being planned. I understand also that there were several other smaller rallies that might be merging together. So there's going to be a lot outside to cover. If everything goes the way it's planned right now, I'll be inside for the whole thing. But after hours, for each evening when it adjourns, I do plan on meeting up with people throughout the night, going to any events that happen to come up. I don't know what they will be at this point, but I want to get more interviews, get people's perspective on where they think things are going, what needs to happen, and I just want to keep gathering as much information as I can and putting it out there for the rest of the world to swallow up and make of it as they will.
You got to do one thing with the rally. You got to devote like an hour to the rear and try to pick out the saboteurs. They'll be there. They'll be there.
Yeah. I saw the 4chan post and everything about plans to do what they can online to break the party up even further, to discredit us and what we're trying to do, and undoubtedly to show up and cause trouble. There's definitely that concern about violence, and I don't doubt in the least that there will be people placed that will try to incite some violence, and we just have to make sure that everybody's ready for that and knows how to cool things off before they really start up.
Now, Elle, I know we touched on this our last broadcast on Monday, about the parallels to the 68 convention in so many different ways. And you've always brought up McGovern and how he was a sympathetic figure of the people and was railroaded himself. And Bernie's kind of like that, except now the voter base is enormous because the millennials are an enormous generation. So if just a few of them are engaged, they outnumber the boomers in some ways, in some counties. What do you see happening going forward, especially at this convention? And really either of you can take the ball on this one.
My fear is that the pattern of voter suppression, which is intended to undo that strong millennial etc. vote, it's plainly working. They are stealing this. They will, in all likelihood, steal California. I hate to say it because I've been literally breathing to try to prevent that with my team here. I expect an explosion of rage and frustration, and I don't expect it'll be only bad actors enacting violence. And I'm extremely concerned about what's going to occur. I guess the other thing I wanted to touch on, since you brought up McGovern's failed candidacy, despite his popularity, the architecture that's been put in place since his era, I'm not saying it was a perfect system before, but fully entrenched now. My remarks are colored by the encounters I've had over the past few hours at this event. They want him to win. They hope he will. They're cheering for him, and they're buying the shirts. But they're not picking up the baton that he waves at every one of these speeches. He even used the phrase himself tonight, "March on Washington." What was the response in the crowd? Not much.
Wow. So Bernie's really, putting the pedal to the metal, and maybe that's what he needed to do, and he sees now that he's going to get, it taken away from him when he really did win a legitimate victory. I mean, I'm looking at some of these numbers in California, which should show that he could make it at least contested. Bernie would win with independents 68 to 26, anyone younger than 45, 66 to 30, and if you're a first-time voter, 72%. He would even win 49 to 46% over Clinton with Latinos, and this is from U.S. Uncut. So where does she even have a lead? And where is this massive voter block? I mean, can anyone answer that in reality, not only this state, but in any state? I mean, it seems to me like the exit polls need to probably be counted by hand in every county where there was any kind of a dispute.
If they do exit polls.
And maybe it needs to be
done.
Well,
they're not. And that's a question that I'd like to ask the Young Turks. Why do we need ABC to do it?
Exactly. I mean, U.S. Uncut's pretty legitimate source for the things that are, not really being reported anywhere else. I mean, I can't even imagine what's going to be going on at this convention. Elle, any final thoughts from there on the ground? I know you're extremely tired, or do you want to soldier through till the end here?
I'd like to talk with the team. I haven't had a chance to download with them. And I guess the last thing I'll say is that despite the showing at Davis and I think the crestfallen expression on our faces, this still isn't over. We aren't giving up. We are delivering this petition in person to the Capitol, whether or not they make room in their schedules for us, which we've been fighting to get, getting a lot of runaround from Secretary of State Padilla's Secretary Lark, getting a lot of technological challenges in how we submit the request to Governor Brown's office. Whether or not they make time for us, we're assuming they want to hear what the people think, and they want to know what to be told to do, because after all, that is the way government is supposed to function. So this whole effort is predicated upon the belief that people are still basically good. And if it's presented reasonably, they will be challenged. Governor Dave Brown was a 60s radical himself. We're hoping to reach that thing inside him. I'm sure Roberta Lang at one time was a completely dedicated civil servant with a crystal clear conscience. And the calling out part of this is where we're trying to remind them what they are actually hired to do.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Elle. I really appreciate your reporting from the ground there. I would say that anything you can see there going forward and other events, keep us posted. I'm sure we're going to have another show next Wednesday, and you'll be back in the studio, and you'll be able to, keep us abreast of your into. Yeah, you think so? You hope so?
No, I thank you is actually where I'm going with that. You forget what a Pollyanna I am. I just wanted to punch a point that I might have missed earlier in the broadcast, which is we've taken the petition online as well. There's a moveon.org petition now. And if you haven't shared that link, Phoebe, I know I sent it to you earlier. If you could give it a little oxygen, it can only help.
And I know it's probably way too long of an address to put out there. It's essentially asking.
If you just look up Open the CA Primary on MoveOn, you'll find it.
Open the CA
Perfect.
Primary.
Thanks,
Yep.
Jason.
And everybody listening, if you're in a mood to have your voice piled on top of other voices, I see that it's been getting some traction now, and people are going to these sites and adding their name to the list. Best bet is still what's going on at opentheprimary.org, right, Elle Dietz?
Absolutely. We operate as if success were assured because we know that this change is essential.
Perfect. Anything to add to that, Jason? I'm running out of steam here pretty soon, and I know Elle is too. Anything you want to end the show with before we sign off here?
Wow. I've been reading a lot today. One thing that after meeting Elle the first time and talking to her, one of the things that I've been bringing up with people is that they can't just assume that the ballots are going to be sitting there waiting. There's been a report, and I haven't been able to research the validity of it, but there are rumors that there are not going to be enough ballots available for everybody to just go up and ask for what they want. So that gives even more validity to what we're doing here, trying to open up the primary, because if they can't use the ballots they have and they can't get ballots to replace them that allow them to vote for who they want, then they're basically stuck. Even though they show up and want to do everything they can, they could potentially be turned away from simply not having the piece of paper ready.
And it's worth mentioning again that when we talk about the no party preference group, we're talking about almost 24% of California voters. We're talking about over 4 million people. There's only 17 million people or so registered to vote in the state. It's a huge block.
What I did see was that Governor Brown had officially endorsed Hillary. I mean, this is going to become...
Yeah, we've been chewing on that today, too.
Yeah, it becomes now a point where we have to get to Padilla over Brown because, Brown's not going to do anything with these petitions. He'll sit on them. Can he legally sit on them? I mean, what becomes the root cause of corruption is when you have this crony kind of buddyism that goes on with these people that sit in office for 20, 30, 40 years. They have each other's backs.
Well, regrettably, Padilla is extremely cozy with the Clintons. I mean, all these backs are being scratched, and it's not a coincidence. Brown's decision to endorse her is something we've been trying to analyze on this road trip because they're kind of opposite creatures. They're of the same generation, and certainly they've achieved heights. But if you look at where they came from, she a Goldwater girl, he an anti-war activist who worked on the McGovern campaign, it's a real head-scratcher.
Now, Jason,
So,
out in Nevada, I mean, what the oligarchies like Reed and who else runs things with an iron fist?
So I've mostly heard everything about Reed. I was watching a video today with Roberto Lane, who basically says that he's been the driving force for everything that's been happening out here. Everyone follows him, and the way she was talking about him, it was almost like they deified him. So I think it really just boils down to I would call him the head of the snake. He's been connecting with everyone out here locally and has been directing them to do whatever it is that they do, whether it's legitimate or not. And I think he's been the biggest problem, which is a real shame, because a long time ago when I first moved out here, I was actually I was supportive, because I happy to see a Democrat reach the level of power that he had. And unfortunately, it seems that either my trust was misplaced or corruption got hold of him. But before I go on, really quickly, I did want to point out something that I saw in one of the Facebook groups. It looks like there are citizen exit polls that are going to be put together. There's a website called electiondefensealliance.org, and they're bringing volunteers together to try and do citizen exit polls in California for the June 7th votes for the primary. So hopefully, even if ABC or the Young Turks or whomever are not able to pull this off, we might have at least some exit polls to look at if they're able to make this happen.
Well, Jason, if I could interject, I made contact with a Young Turks producer at the earlier event today, and obviously activating that tenuous connection virtually immediately was critical. I'd like to talk with you a bit about that. Is that going to be possible a little bit later?
Sorry, you broke up a little bit there.
I'm sorry. I'm asking if it's okay for me to give you a call in an hour or so.
Oh, yeah. That's fine.
Would
Can I call you?
would theoretically would theoretically the AB 120 provide money for said hand count?
It's $16 million. I'm going to say yes.
So there really should be no opposition or hurdles to get through, except for somebody.
If they had an argument based on cost, it's negated.
Exactly. So maybe that needs to be part of a new push too, as well, going forward.
Yeah, absolutely, and that is part of our phrasing of the petition and these letters. The evolution has been not insignificant, but the through line has been relying heavily on three basic facts, and one is that money is already there.
Exactly.
All right, I'm out.
All right.
I have to go.
Thank you.
A real pleasure, and thanks for the chance to speak. Good night.
Of course. And Jason, is there anything, we have about 10 minutes left, anything you wanted to get out there as far as future work going or issues that you were interested in getting out there for our listening public?
Just, educate yourself. Everybody, at this point, everyone's got some way to get on to Google and start researching everything happening around you. There's no reason not to understand what's happening in front of us. Sticking with the mainstream media means that you're never really going to be truly informed, because they have their own agendas. These are companies. Companies don't do business for the good of mankind. They do business to make money. And so whoever's paying them is going to have a say in what they cover, and you can't trust that. You need to go out there and find the information for yourself. Now, there are a lot of people and a lot of groups that are trying to do what they can to bring everything up front and make it easy to find, but you got to be willing to do at least a little bit of work on your own, because if you're not putting in some effort, you're really not going to get anything done. I myself, I've got a public Google Drive open. I've got documents that I've put up there for people to find. We've got the videos on YouTube. I've even made, again, I'm pushing Robert's rules. I'm going to push that until the convention's done in Philly. I've got a series of tutorials online through YouTube that I found that I've put together in a playlist for people that should help, especially the delegates. I can't stress this enough. I want our delegates to know what's happening. I don't want what happened in Nevada to happen in Philadelphia. That is absolutely unacceptable. There's no reason for that. I know we have a lot of people that are struggling to get there, but if they can get there, and again, we're also trying to help them do that.
And that's
but
part
if
of
they
the
can get there, they need to know what's going on.
And that's part of the game too, Jason. It really is. It's trying to make it so that it's just inexpensive enough for people that do become involved in the process to where they can't really continue on to where it really counts and be involved in, critical issues that could be swayed by 10, 20, 30 votes. It's crazy how that game is played, where all boils down back to money. I mean, that's just all it is.
Yeah, and that's exactly why I'm not a delegate going to national at this point. I mean, besides the fact that there would be an election, I'd actually have to be elected for it. But I didn't even try because I didn't think there would ever be a chance of me being able to afford that. I'm a father with 4 children here at home, and my fiance, and we are all living on my income right now. She stays home and takes care of all the kids. And with what I make, it never seemed feasible for me to even get to Philadelphia, let alone be able to afford to stay there and get the gear necessary to continue broadcasting. So I didn't even try, and I definitely regret that. Thankfully, through sites like GoFundMe, a lot of the delegates who did get elected and didn't have the means to get there themselves, they are finding the funds through small donations, very much the same way Bernie's campaign is working, just hundreds to thousands of small donations, giving them what they need to supplement the money that they had, if they had any money, to get out there and make sure that they're a part of this.
Crowdfundingocracy, that's the future of our democracy. Getting people, getting small people, small parties, small representatives, the money they need to actually become big enough to represent their own communities. And, once you get to that point where they're actually in those positions, it's not a bad salary. I think it's like an $86,000 a year job or something to start. So,
yeah.
But we want the right people in there that's a good living for them, that aren't going to be shaken with these loans and the graft and the basically the blatant corruption going on. So thank you so much, Jason, again. Do you want to give everyone your information again one last time before I let you go? And thank you so much for calling, or actually taking my call tonight.
Sure, absolutely. Again, the handle to remember is PhoenixFX. It's FENYXFX. You can find me on YouTube, Twitter. You can find me on Facebook, GoFundMe. Like I said, I'm also raising money to make sure I'm out there so that I can broadcast all of this. I've been making all of my Facebook posts public at this point, so all the information I talked about, being able to find the Google Drive site, the playlist on YouTube, everything should all be available if you just search for that handle. And yeah, again, I want to thank you very much for having both of us on and doing what you're doing and keeping the information flowing for everybody.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Again, that was Jason Yanez, and he has a handle FENYXFX, PhoenixFX. Thank you so much, Jason.
Thank you.